Ah, Celeste. What is the first thing you think of that comes to mind when thinking about Celeste? The beautiful graphics and art style? Fun platforming? The speedrunning? Or the modding community? Maybe even the strawberries that I f***ing hate, or even the difficulty. There are a lot of things that make Celeste an amazing experience, even with the release that was over 6 years ago. This will also be a mini-series, similar to my Fire Emblem videos. But instead of talking about the story primarily, this will be pure 100% gameplay. The controls of Celeste are quite simple. You have your basic movements such as literally moving, jumping to your heart's content, climbing, but most importantly, dashing. Such a simple mechanic, isn't it? What if I told you can just, I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot more than just dashing in a simple direction. I am by no means a Celeste master, hell no. But I have speedrun this game at some point, and if there are some things you'd like to point out whether I got it wrong or I wasn't explaining it very well, feel free to leave a comment below, and I'd be more than happy to accept your feedback. With that out of the way, let's get this started. The main 7 levels are quite fun and challenging, except for chapter 5, because of Theo, which I'll explain as you follow along. There are also the B-sides, which are shorter and more difficult versions of the main levels. The C-sides, which are even more shorter and difficult levels. The first 2 levels are not that difficult to handle, and 2B is the easiest one I would say. Levels like 3B and 6B make me want to wave my controller and punch a hole in my wall. These levels are frustrating to beat, and I'll say that I am impatient at times, so seeing the dust bunnies can be a pain. And don't get me started with the C-side, but it's only because it's 3 rooms is not that bad if I'm honest. 6B is a matter of the length in some rooms. I don't mind 6A as much because I've speedrun there before and it is quite fun to do. 6B is hellish to speedrun, precise movements, those things to do. And I don't know what they're called, but I hate these with a burning passion. There's inconsistency used and the precise movements with that. I hope I don't see these things in Strawberry Jam once I get to Expert or Grandmaster, but I want to bring up what each of the main levels offer in difficulty, game mechanics, and such. So let's get into the city. Forsaken City is the first actual level you'll run into, and it's a tutorial level, where it teaches you the basics of climbing, dashing, springs, traffic blocks. There's plenty of strawberries to satisfy your hunger for those 100% things, just don't do 202 berries, please. This level, while being the tutorial level, is arguably one of the harder ones to speedrun. This is primarily for having a set path that you would usually like to follow. My best time is a 1:14, which is pretty damn good, but there's a lot of learning, trial and error, and so on. This level is a really good introduction to the game. While not being that difficult, it shows that it can be, and what's to come later down the line. I like to start off by how Madeline herself controls. You can't really enjoy a video game if your character's movement is sucks and is stiff. I'd go as far as to say that Celeste has perfect controls on Madeline. The dash is quite simple, yet the devs were smart enough to include techniques that speedrunners can abuse, and can be used so well with all the game is introduced within the later levels. And yeah, chapter 1 is the first level. So you get traffic blocks that essentially move, and you maintain that momentum. If you jump off of it while it is moving, you basically move faster, right? So it's quite simple. The crystal is another theme that is introduced immediately. The crystal is a way that you can retain a dash in midair, and not only is the dash retained, but your stamina is also retained as well, which is how much energy you have left to climb a wall or hold onto it. You can defy this technically with the mechanic known as the neutral jump. This is done by simply pressing the jump button and delaying the movement of Madeline slightly and move towards the wall. It's difficult to explain, so do not worry, because I have a controller overlay that you can refer to when I'm explaining mechanics. This varies obviously depending on what your inputs are, so I'll bring my inputs up. A or RB is to jump. This is pretty simple. B/X is to dash. LB is to crouch dash. LT/RT is to climb and grab onto walls. Analog stick and D-pad is self-explanatory, which is pretty much moving. There's also a speedrun technique known as a corner boost. It looks like this. This can be used in most edges. An example I like to use is in the gym of the Strawberry Jam mod. It requires climbing and jumping at the same time. Nearly at the top of the block, if you're too high, just simply dash over the block. If you're too low, you will grab onto the wall instead. Again, refer to the controller overlay to see the inputs needed to perform this. You will know you have done it successfully if Madeline has shown some sweat and get a sudden burst of speed. You have done a corner boost. So back to the city. And it's quite a good first level. It doesn't really give you an actual tutorial, so you're thrown in there to experiment and struggle here. In a casual playthrough, this is done very well to introduce the player and to ease them in while learning new things. In this level, I hate speedrunning it. This level can easily throw you off whether you're doing ILs or a full game speedrun. There's a specific part that ends a lot of my IL runs, and it is precise super dash to upright dash, running into the next room, dashing up, and hoping and praying you have the chance to grip that wall and progress the run. Otherwise, you might as well restart. The rest of the level is more hyper dashes, corner boosts, some wall bounces, but the whole super dash transition to the next room theme can be disorienting for me at times. The last room was when I showed you neutral jumps, which you can actually use this to skip the normal way to clear the room. You'll be out of stamina in this method, so it's risky. You neutral jump up to the point here, move to the right, wall jump, and just at the right time, you dash up, and that's level 1. Honestly, a pain to speedrun, but it's a really good level to practice because once you get consistent in it, it becomes really satisfying to pull moves off. For now though, let's move on to chapter 2, the old side, and probably my favorite level to speedrun. So this level, at first, you look around, you see that there's not much to do since you just started the level. It is then when you check this mirror that these dream blocks are activated, and look at this.
I gotta tell you, it was perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
This is the greatest thing ever designed in any platformer in history. The dream block grants endless opportunities to design a level. You can make a pure level out of dream block. Go wild, go crazy. It is the best thing in this game, and I cannot praise it enough. I may be overestimating how valuable this block actually is and what it brings to the table, but it's still of a fun mechanic to use overall. This results in being able to get strawberries to look the me size and much more. But the next segment of this level results in a chase, which is the coolest part to speedrun. You can wave dashes, corner boosts, hyper dashes, which are very precise to do, by the way, and it makes it all the more fun. The chase itself is stressful whether casually or doing it fast, since battling follows your exact movements.
He copied my whole f***ing flow.
That's kissed me through the phone.
He copied my whole f***ing flow. Word for word, bar for bar.
Also, battling is supposed to be like your other self in a way, or like another part of you, a purple you in a nutshell, or some demon thing of some sort that follows you throughout the game and eventually teams up with you, granting you double dash. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We are still only in the second level. After that chase, here comes the boring part of coming back to the real world. I know I said I wouldn't mention the story back, but Madeline talks to the guy on the phone. It does not explain who this is, and it goes nowhere after, but that's something I just wanted to bring up. So moving along, what are some things you can do in this level? Well, it's a good time to introduce the wall bounce and hyper dash. The wall bounce is kind of self-explanatory, as you dash up to a wall, aligning yourself to where you can jump off of it. As you dash, you gain far more height than usual. Again, dash up is the easiest speedrun mechanic to explain. This is also used intentionally in 7B, so the devs knew speedrunners will eat this up like crazy. Next, the hyper dash is a way to cover good horizontal distance by dashing down right and jumping at the right time. You can go fast and also retain your dash. You know you recovered if Madeline's hair is white while dashing on the ground, and once you jump, her hair should be red. If you messed it up, it likely means that you jumped too early and didn't retain her dash, jumped too late and didn't cover much distance but regained your dash. These two techniques are used often in the entire game and are really good at just making Madeline even better for you to control. A minor tweak to the wall bounce is the good horizontal distance you can cover. If you hold up, you go high but don't move much horizontally. If you hold the direction you jump off of, this can result in covering much more horizontal distance. Tiny details like this can go a really long way in this game. As I have mentioned before, I'm a really big fan of the dream block. They're really fun to mess around with. You can jump out of it, which grants more distance than usual. Chapter 2 for me is a top level because of how fast you're going with these dream blocks. This is only with one dash. Imagine it with two. This level is more of a pain in the second half. Once you reach the chase, there are precise inputs you can pull off to skip rooms. But this is one, for example. You barely squeeze to the dream block, dashing this way. It's very easy to die this. And I don't know if this is pretty perfect. I highly doubt it, but that it is. But yeah, overall it is a very fun level to speed through, considering the whole level chase thing already being frantic enough on a casual playthrough. So let's just move on to the bane of my existence, the resort of hell in chapter 3. The game here starts to pick up difficulty. The first couple of rooms are not so difficult to handle. Well, after reaching to this room, so let's get started with clearing these 3 gauntlets. Is what I'll call them. I basically had to clean up the room depending on which order you attempt this in. It can be fairly easy or annoying to get through, but long story short, there is no way to skip this. You have to talk to the owner. Every single time you clean up something and progressing the level will lead to this thing, a wall made out of dust bunnies, with not only the ability to dash through them, Yeah, I still struggle with this thing. This is a level I struggle with quite often because of dust bunny cycles and the boss itself, which you can bounce out of. The timing for it is precise, but I'm not going to say it's a bad level. It's just not one I'd replay often. This level introduces these things, which I don't know what they are, so I'll just call them doorbell blocks for now. I know it was in chapter 2, but this level puts more emphasis into these. So it's better to showcase them here in this level. So you must collect the fragments where there's only 1 or more than 3. Once you have collected them, you can proceed over to the next area. There's obviously room to speedrun here, but there's a bit restricting going on here. I'm going to skip the boss. Fuck him. Let's head straight to chapter 4, which is an incredible level to show off speedrun techniques. You may know to do the speedrun techniques, but chaining them together is super satisfying while knowing the high risk, high reward level of play. Personally, when it comes to platformers, I like to play with a bit of risk, if you will. Ridge is probably one of the top 3 levels I like to speed through. And there's a mechanic I use called the spike jump, which you can do by barely jumping off of the wall of spikes in this particular room. You can just grab the block, move it to reach the bridge. With a spike jump, you can skip that entirely. Jump up there, there's another thing you can chain immediately. A wall bounce into another wall bounce. Level starts throwing in wind, whether it slows you down or speeds you up. Dash ignores the winds and you can still do your wave dash, hyper dash, and whatnot. A bubble is also introduced into the player, as when you jump into it, you are given a small window of time to choose what direction you dash in, or completely ignore that and press dash to cancel that window of time. There's this one room where I have no idea how to get through. It's hard to input for me because I just started trying to practice it, and I'll just show you right here. Yeah, this is extremely difficult for no reason, but let's move to the snowballs. The snowballs also pull up, and this is either your best friend or the bane of your existence. Whatever the case is, these snowballs kill you, yet can give you hope at the same time. You can jump on them and retain your dash, and then the wind comes into play. The room before introduced it, then it ramps up immediately with the wind in the next room. It's a small detail, yet quite smart. The rest of the level is more wind, and overall, I find Ridge to be challenging to speedrun. The blue bubbles can throw you off, spike jump is hard to do consistently, snowballs suck, clouds are not that difficult to use, but it's basically a trampoline. And also Ridge is a difficult level with a fair difficult type of hard. I want to say Ridge is a top 3 level for me to speedrun through. Despite I don't have the best record in it, like 4 minutes is really bad. I need to practice that. But regardless, let's move on to the next level. The temple is one of the few levels with significant sips that can save up to minutes of play. Here's the center room, right? Quite large and spacious. And here's the red bubbles that are similar to blue bubbles. But the only difference is that the red bubbles are kind of permanent. So for the most part, you can still do the same thing with the red bubbles. You either have to bump into a wall, or dash out of it manually. This can make for some interesting level design. But in the main game, there's nothing crazy happening. The next little thing is this block, which is triggered by dashing. And it is a fun mechanic to use that can make interesting puzzles. Since it is not primarily a switch, it just reverts to its original state. At this point in the level, there's a lot to explore, whether that's collecting strawberries, finding the B-side, the heart, so on. Once you progress to the level far enough, there's another gimmick thrown at you. This thing. These are called seekers. What are these creatures, you may ask? They hunt you down in a nutshell. The moment they see you, similar to a snowball, you can bounce off of it. And not only that, you can also gain a boost from it as well. This happens by simply being next to it before it reforms and grant a little boost for you. And your gash is also retained as well. This is used in speedruns, which saves a good amount of time. After you get through this section, you are shrouded in complete darkness with creepy music to accompany you. Speaking of music, here's an example of a song backwards, and I think it's worth listening to this.
Sometimes I don't really know what's going on anymore. I don't know who I am.
I wanted to bring this up because it's interesting hearing her actual thoughts while exploring this temple earlier when we had our first encounter with Madeline. I didn't bring up chapter 4 that Madeline was hallucinating and hyperventilating. So that's some context. There's a skip you can do when you can do reverse super dash and progress without having to collect keys and get the red bubble. So the next section is going to be annoying. But before we get to that, think of Theo, right? I'll just bring him up on the screen here. Then I'll bring in a rock. What do you think you will result from this? Maybe a rock thing, a rock shield Theo can fight. I'll just show you this abomination. Look, I do not like this thing. I f***ing hate Theo's rock crystal form, whatever the hell you want to call it. I just don't like it. This is one of the mechanics I am not a big fan of. Personally, Theo is too restricting for my liking. It can be very annoying to keep alive since he falls off the room and dies if you go with him. You can't climb or dash while carrying him. Sure, releasing him does something and he's a pseudo jellyfish. I just don't like him because of how demanding inputs can get from carrying him. The only positive I'll give Theo is that you can kill seekers and throw them off hazards, which is good. You kill his eye thing, which is neat, and this is the only level in the game where he is crystallized. Thank for that shit. So, the next chapter is Reflection, and honestly, my favorite chapter in the game. It's very fun to speedrun. The boss fight is challenging. Music is oddly and relaxing to listen to. The beginning of the level contains a feather, and by moving around you just simply fly up, fly down, fly horizontally. One thing I will say is do not use the feather on keyboard. Otherwise, it's manageable. On D-pad, perfectly fine on analog stick as well. You end up crashing on water and swim only to bump into these things. I call them grumpies. And dashing into one makes it go the opposite direction you had dashed. You can skip this little room by dashing left and getting on top of it to dash down. It goes up when you do a corner boost into the next room. After a while, here's another skip. The next area gets you more used to the grumpies and feathers. After that, you make your way to the boss. There is a lot going down here. Dashing is your form of attacking, these little orbs that will kill you, a laser that can be annoying to dodge because of the timing, but it's whatever. What makes this boss really fun is the setting. You're heading rock bottom into the depths of the mountain to face off battling, confronting her, ready to throw hands and whoop her. There's a few hurdles you have to jump before you even hit her. At a certain point, these obstacles will start moving and don't really benefit you that much. They can easily cost you your attempt and your room. You can't really skip fighting her either because there are these tentacle things that prevent you from progressing until you hit battling. So you have no choice but to fight her. The feather is used in this boss and it's fine, but very stressful to use once battling starts shooting out lasers. When she starts moving the blocks, you can use them to your advantage sometimes and gain height or cover more horizontal distance. Even so, she can't beat me and we make peace and unlock the double dash, or pink hair Madeline. Overall, Reflection is a level I thought I wouldn't like to speed through that much, but it's actually quite fun to do. The grumpy blocks are okay, yet these things f***ing suck. Aside from that, the battle and boss fight is quite fun, since instead of trying to just get to point B, there are a couple detours that you must take in order to get to point B in this instance. Once you beat her, the double dash opens up way more options for us. So, let's get to the end and go straight to the summit. The summit is an interesting level. It feels like a final test for the player. Everything you learned so far in the game to be used in one singular level. The beginning of the level is similar to Reflection, aesthetically for the most part, but it's wall jumping and air time again. This part you can easily chain a lot of speedrunning techniques up together. Hyper dashing, corner boosts, corner kicks, wave dashes, so on. I usually get this area done in 40 seconds if I'm speedrun attempting. There are 47 strawberries in this level, but we avoid it because I don't really have that much time for them and I don't care to collect them. So let's just move straight to 500 meters. Moving to 500 meters, this is reminiscent of the city level. You have your traffic blocks down here now, with an interesting way of being able to use them. Speed through rooms faster than ever, with the double dash, using wall bounces primarily for this section of the level, dashing through tight spaces with good precision, using reverse super dash to shave off seconds. And there's another thing. In this part of the level, we have to use either a corner kick to trigger this traffic block. Use battling, you can either wall bounce off of it or just wait patiently, which is usually what I do in this part of the level. But regardless, it is quite good. It's a quite good segment to speed through. The only issue I have is easily messing up this section all the time, especially the very first super dash to the wall bounces and all that stuff. Very not fun, and I hate messing that part up because it's easy. But if you do clear this section in a good way and are able to move to the next segment, let's move to 1000 meters. Now, reminiscent of the old site, you have these dream blocks and we dash right through them. No problem, right? You'd be right, but there's these things known as dream hypers. So you basically dash into a dream block, and as you come out of the block, you dash and jump at the same time, almost like maintaining your speed in a way. Here's a controller overlay you can refer to, seeing how it is inputted. The room before that contains a little shortcut. You can go to the first room up top and make your way over, much faster than normal. I did this at some point where I went up the normal way and I forgot how to do that room, since it is unusual for me to see this room at all unless I'm collecting the strawberries or heart frag. Even so, let's keep moving and get to the next segment, which is also the reason of my existence, by the way. $1,500 meters is based on a resort, which I already mentioned that I do not like the level that much. It has the dreaded dust bunnies, makes good uses of those things surprisingly, and the walls have little antenna things that are triggered if you climb, jump, or stand on it. There's a particular room that stands out because of speeding through the room. I'll show then explain it as best as I can. This consists of a hyper dash to a jump, 2 downright dashes, a jump that retains your dash, hit the dash crystals, 2 uprights to get that along, another hyper dash, then a right dash to a wave dash, and that should be it. It's a lot of inputs to do, but it's quite a significant shortcut if you pull it off well, and it does save good time. However, losing that room is costly and can reset your run. 2000 meters is the ridge segment. This is a good segment so as you can pull off a major skip in the second room by wall bouncing and stuff. I mentioned before that the wind doesn't affect how far your dash goes, so you can still do your wave dashes and stuff. The snowballs here are still only for a few rooms, so fortunately you don't have to worry about it that much. There's one room that I still haven't really got to speedrun that much, and it's this. You can skip it entirely, but I'm scared to do it the fast way because if you fail, you lose a lot of time. The next couple of rooms can be boiled down to a few wall bounces and that's it. However, the last room, there's this one tiny skip where you trigger the block and you can do a crouch dash in. It's very precise, but if you pull it off, you save a good 2 seconds, maybe 1 or 2 seconds. But the last room, I've died in it a couple of times and it made me reset my run, unfortunately. But yeah, let's move on to the hardest one in my opinion, 2500 meters. 2500 meters is on attempt, which is my favorite to run through despite the difficulty. So you go through 2 red bubbles and dash down, do a super jump into a jump, skipping into this room. There's another major skip that is a spike jump up here. This one is a bit outdated actually, and this one is what I prefer to use. There's a way you can wall bounce, but it is difficult to pull off, so I stick with the spike jump most of the time. The spike jump up here, which involves jumping twice and dashing up twice to get the key. You can die no problem since the key stays with you. You progress and have to squeeze through some tight areas. To get through this a lot, you can demo dash to make it easier, but you can still do this without it, no problem. The last room is easy, but if you die, you might as well restart the IL at that point. Overall, I think 2500 is difficult, but it is fairly difficult. It's not BS like 1500 in my opinion. I just think 2500 requires a lot more precise inputs in that case because of the demo dashes, you know, squeezing through those locks. But you can still do it just fine with a normal dash. However, the spike jump can mess you up badly and make you restart your run. But overall, 2500 is a very good segment to run through. And let's head to the final point, the home stretch, 3000 meters. $3,000 meters. Oh boy. This segment involves 30 flag checkpoints. So let's speed through them. Flag 30 to 20 require a lot of wall bouncing and wall bouncing to get through. Even if the wind is facing you down, it is still quite easy. The main thing that can throw you off is primarily the precision of those dashes, as you can easily mess up these inputs from time to time. Aside from them, you can get a flag or 2, but not touching them and being near the flag to regain your dashes. You spam up when dashing on checkpoint 20, and then you can progress to the next segment. Flag 20 through flag 6 is when Madeline is floating, due to the wind current going up. If you die in most of these segments or checkpoints, you lose a lot of time. time, likely 3 to 5 seconds depending on the flag. I don't like this part because of that. It is very punishing for speedrunning if you die. These sets of flags are more position based on your jumps than actual gimmicks and stuff. You can wall balance, but it's mostly checkpoint 13 that frustrates me because of dying on it. It loses a lot of time, but it's not the most difficult but punishing if you die. And once you get through flag 7, then you can head to the final 6 flags, which is when the wind current is neutral and there's no advantage or disadvantage. Flags 6 to 1 are the longer checkpoints on most climbing, jumping with the feather thrown in for funsies or whatever you reach. The last one, when you're so close to getting the goal of your speedrunning the game, and then I restarted my run a few times from this checkpoint. Regardless, you win and clear Celeste speedrunning. I primarily do IOs, but at some point I would like to do a full game speedrun. I stream the game on here sometimes, so I'll likely be practicing some levels and all, and then do full game attempts. Overall, Celeste is the first game I've actively speedrun at some point and have returned to as of editing this video, where I had a lot of fun. I even tried speedrunning through Farewell, which will have a separate video due to the level length. Summit is a really fun level despite the difficulty, and the level resort is not that fun for me. The rest are fun to run through, but yeah, I have a lot of fun with this game, and I've been playing mods such as Strawberry Jam, which is really fun to do if I'm honest. At some point I will make a video on that, most definitely, but I have not cleared Expert or Grandmaster, and I'm nowhere near that point. I want to say that Celeste is not an easy game in general. It's not a game where you can easily dive and start speedrunning immediately. Take a bit of time to get a solid record at. If you ever want to go for a world record pace, good luck, because that is a lot of practice to put into one singular game. I don't think I'll go for a world record pace ever. Not because I can't do it, but it's because I'm not interested in committing so much time and effort on it. If you want to try a world record speedrun, go for it. What is there to stop you from doing so? I love this game a lot. It's the first game I've put my hand in on speedrunning, likely the only one. I will mention the B and C size in a separate video, and then the last 2 levels, its own video. So look forward to those future videos. I did post this a while back in my community post saying that it would be done within a few weeks. Well, here we are. Regardless of that, thanks for watching and enjoy yourselves and have a good one.